Welcome to my Venom review. I'm Johnny Massacre and welcome to my channel. The story, especially the whole setup, is bad. It's really bad. So there's a spaceship that's sent into space by some evil guy. Can't even remember his fucking name. And the guy is a stereotypical bad guy. He owns an evil mega corporation right in the heart of the city where he conducts all kinds of ridiculous illegal activities and no one ever investigates him. So he's out there looking for shit. And on the way back, they come across an asteroid and it's full of aliens called symbiotes. So they pick up 4 of them and then one of them escapes on the ship. And so the spaceship crash lands. The crash landing scene happened about 1 minute into the film, and that was the first stupid thing in the film. It manages to quite neatly crash land and not completely engulf itself in flames. When they find it, it's not even burning up. And yeah, everyone's dead apart from one person. That one person happens to have been infected by the alien, and that person kills some of the rescue team. And then you discover that this alien element is infectious and it infects a bunch of people and starts walking away from the crash site on its own. And then the story, that part of the story, the hunt for this missing alien, stops there temporarily. Now the intro is cliched. The whole story premise is cliched. Find an alien element, it is infectious, it infects people, and then the carnage and the destruction starts. So let's compare this to a film, Aliens, which is very similar. So in Aliens, they're also doing some kind of space exploration, looking for stuff. They also come across a life form. They also decide to try to get the life form and capture it. And the life form also infects the crew, so to speak. So that part is exactly the same. Now, look at how Aliens does it. Or Aliens, sorry, directed by Ridley Scott. That film is a masterclass in storytelling. It's a very slow build up. It starts off, it's very serene in space, everything's fine. They establish the characters very well before any of the mad shit starts happening, so you care about the characters. And then the music starts to change and reflect the ominous mood of the story. They go into some unknown place and then the tension really starts to ratchet up until the climax of the first act, where the face hugger attaches onto the guy. So if you build things up slowly, people start feeling tense, they start getting into the drama, they start caring about the characters, they start caring about what's going on, and they start getting absorbed by the movie. In this film, it happens within 1 minute. So it just all happened a little bit too fast, and the editing was a bit suspect. It seemed like a lot of scenes that were kind of randomly stitched or cobbled together. So from the get-go, you could see the story was pretty dumb. So then it starts to establish the main character, which is Tom Hardy. And I heard that his performance was really good in this movie, although when he's just playing Eddie Brock, I wasn't that convinced. He kind of comes across like an idiot. He plays the character like a dumbass. And one of the other characters at one point says, "You're supposed to be so clever." So I think he's supposed to be this bright guy. He has to be, because he has this show on a TV network, which you couldn't get if you're a dumbass. But he plays the character like a dumbass. So Tom Hardy's portrayal of Eddie Brock is a little bit weird. But his portrayal of Venom is awesome. So we will get into that in a minute. But Tom Hardy is basically the saving grace of this movie. He did put in a killer performance for Venom. So the person who sent a spaceship into space and took back these symbiotes, much like in Aliens, the way an evil mega corporation, the Weyland-Yutani Corporation, wants to use the alien for some kind of human development. In Alien, it was as a military weapon. In this movie, it's to cure disease or something. It's all enhance evolution. It's the missing link between humans and the next stage of evolution. I can't even remember what it is because it's not fleshed out at all. He barely references his motivation after the first time he says it. And the bad guy wants to retrieve the remaining symbiote, but in the meantime, he's got 3 symbiotes in his lab and he's testing them on homeless people. So I guess that part of the story makes sense. He can't just test it on regular people. No one would sign up for that, having an alien attach itself to you without knowing the consequences. So he basically gets these bums to sign up to do medical testing. Now, this clearly would be illegal. There's no way bums can sign up to do that shit in the real world. There's definitely going to be some measures in place to stop that. Otherwise, all these bums would be getting diseased and fucked up by medical testing. So right off the bat, the law system in this version of the Marvel universe is really weird. It doesn't make any sense, basically. So there's no way this bad guy would be able to get this stream of bums and kill them, especially without anyone finding out, someone leaking the information in his company. But it seems this guy can just do whatever he wants without reprieve, without fear of the law coming down on him. So he's doing this medical testing and shit, which is really stupid. And Eddie Brock finds out about it. And this is where the first act starts to head towards a close. The inciting incident is basically the bad guy killing bums for his experiments, his murderous experiments. And that kind of calls Eddie Brock to action. That's his call to action. And how does Eddie Brock find out about the bad guy killing these bums in his lab? Well, his girlfriend's kind of related to that company, and he goes onto her computer by using her password when she's asleep, and then sees a private email with some leads as to this bad guy committing these crimes. Now, that basically means Tom Hardy is a bit of an asshole. He's using his girlfriend's password to look at her private emails, which is really fucked up. So this shows you some of the character flaws which should be resolved later, but are never resolved. He never learned from this at all, even though he apologizes from it. So that was a bit weird as well. So Tom Hardy finds out about the bad guy by going onto his girlfriend's computer. Now, his attempts to deal with this situation as a reporter lead to the turning point in the story, which is he basically loses his job and his girlfriend gets infected with the alien. So trying to follow up on this lead, he goes and interviews the bad guy in his skyscraper for his show, and he doesn't stick to the script. He starts interrogating, I should say, the bad guy about what he's doing with these test subjects and so on, and tries to expose him. And the bad guy obviously doesn't like that and gets rid of him. And it leads to a series of events that get Tom Hardy or Eddie Brock fired from his job. And his girlfriend also gets fired. It's found out that his girlfriend was partly responsible for the leak of information. So therefore his life is irrevocably changed, and this concludes the first act. Will Tom Hardy get his girl back? Will he get another job? Importantly, will he rid himself of the symbiote, which seems to be quite evil? So he sets off on a journey to do all of these things. How does he get infected with the symbiote? Well, at some point, one of the workers in the laboratory has had enough with her boss killing these bums, and she goes to find a reporter to tell him what's going on. And she obviously knows about this guy getting fired because it was in the news and stuff. So she approaches him and she takes him to the lab. And then Tom Hardy tries to hide in the lab to get away from the security guards, at which point he recognizes one of the bums who's being infected by the symbiote or the alien as one of the bums he was fond of, that was near where he lived, near a general store he often visited for his groceries. And a woman a bum or a woman he would give money to support occasionally. And so of course he tries to help the character, but then the character being possessed by the alien tries to attack him, and then he gets infected by the symbiote. So that's the end of the first act. And then the next scene is establishing the character of Tom Hardy's Eddie Brock. And this is where the film starts to show some value, because up to this point it was bad. Let's be honest, it was really bad. But Tom Hardy's performance here is awesome. And as a fan of Venom in the comics, I'm very happy to say that the portrayal of Eddie Brock and Venom is so good. It's really faithful to the comics. Now, I am not the kind of fanboy who, just because he likes the source material, will like the movie. If you see my other reviews, my Star Wars reviews, you will know that I don't give a fuck about the history or what the movie was based on or how much I love the original brand or whatever. Actually, me being a fan of the original source material means if the movie's bad, I feel the poor quality of the movie more severely than other people because my expectations are so high. So for this movie to be bad story-wise and satisfy me in regards to the portrayal of the protagonist shows you that the portrayal of of Venom and the main character's performance and the faithfulness to the source material is really fucking good. So he's struggling with the symbiote in his apartment, and he's eating all this raw food to satisfy its hunger, and then you start to hear the voice of the alien in his head. And Tom Hardy's performance, where he has to imagine something's in his head and react to it all the time, just goes to show you how much of a great actor he is. So that was really decent. And Tom Hardy starts to get a bit tougher. He had a problematic neighbor who's always playing the guitar, but when he gets infected with Venom, he goes to vent and release some of his anger on the guy and shuts the guy up. But it's a bit weird because Tom Hardy wasn't exactly a pussy before. He had quite a good job and he was an investigative reporter. He was quite ballsy already. So I think this scene would have been more powerful if he was a total pussy, and then when Venom infected him, he suddenly got his confidence. So the character development is a little bit stunted there. But anyways, so Tom Hardy ends up contacting his ex-girlfriend, who he was engaged to, who recently dumped him, and he discovers that she's dating someone else, dating a doctor. I think he is infected at this point, possibly, but he's acting like a bit of a dick, so it's quite clear he's not going to get his girl back, and that is going to be an integral part of the story, trying to get her back. And he goes to see her a second time. He finds her in some restaurant because he's kind of working out what's happening. And that's one of the best scenes in the movie. I read in a review by someone else of this movie that it was kind of a bit weird and out of place, but I loved it. He goes into the restaurant and he's trying to control the symbiote. The symbiote wants him to attack things, but he's trying to control it. So he's struggling with himself and he's overheating, which is one of the side effects of being infected by a symbiote, which means in the restaurant there's a lobster tank and he jumps in there like a bath and he starts eating the lobsters, and it's just completely chaotic. And I loved that scene. I thought Tom Hardy, that was great there, and that was probably his best performance in the movie. Really chaotic, really, really cool. So the weird thing is this is all 6 months later, and that means the symbiote that got away, that infected this woman who's walking around in some other fucking part of the world, some other country altogether far away, she's been walking around for 6 months unaccounted for, and then she suddenly comes back into the story. So that was a massive plot hole. Now, the motivations of the bad guy have since been revealed. So he's trying to bond these aliens with these subjects. We already know about that, and he's having problems doing it because the symbiote won't bond with people. It rejects them and ends up killing them. But Tom Hardy, he's the only guy by chance who can bond with the symbiote without it killing him. So Tom Hardy is essential to the bad guy's research. and the bad guy finds out that Tom Hardy's infected. So the bad guy needs Tom Hardy to be captured. I think one of the symbiotes he has died when it bonded with someone else. It turns into this hard mess on the floor. The other one, there's a yellow symbiote. It's unaccounted for. It's not mentioned again in the film. What happened to that symbiote? And then the other symbiotes around the world somewhere, they haven't found it. So Tom Hardy's the only one available to him, I think. But certainly the only one that's able to have bonded with a host. So he needs to find Tom Hardy. So there's a scene where he goes after Tom Hardy and they try to capture him. This shit is really weird as well. Again, they seem to be living in the Wild West, not modern day New York City. The bad guy sends all these goons after Tom Hardy. So he's got these goons on his payroll. They rampage through the city, destroying shit left, right, and center, causing explosions everywhere. And he's got this army of flying drones that chase Tom Hardy that are really futuristic and sci-fi. And these things don't seem to exist in the world at large. The general public's probably never seen them. So the general public not only is being exposed to complete chaos during this chase scene, but they're seeing these futuristic drones and stuff. It just doesn't make any sense. And there seems to be no consequences for the bad guy destroying the city. You wouldn't be able to just get away with that. So that was really, really stupid. And you're seeing more and more CGI of Venom, and the CGI is not great. When you see Venom in full, it's a little bit too shiny and doesn't look that believable. But when it's just a little bit more subtle, for want of a better word, when it's just black and not shiny and they're using it subtly, it looks quite convincing, I guess. And then Tom Hardy transforms into Venom, which is when he's confronted by one of the bad guys and is nearly captured. And then I have to say, although I don't particularly like the CGI of Venom, the animation, the way it moves is just how I always envisaged Venom moving. So I was really, really happy about that. It is ferocious. It is intense. It is powerful. It is beastly. They couldn't have got that more right if they tried. I always imagined from the comics portrayal of Venom as someone who was like that, unstoppable. This huge, weighty, powerful thing whose speed belied its size. And that's exactly what it's like. He is ferocious. So I really like the way it moves. And he jumps in the sea. Even that's ferocious. He smashes into the ocean and then he just swims viciously out to a boy in the middle of nowhere. And then the Venom kind of comes off Tom Hardy and confronts him. So they basically meet each other for the first time. And this is kind of interesting. So all the good parts of the film revolve around Venom and Tom Hardy and their interaction. Because Venom is a character in itself. Another movie where the character's infected, they're just infected, their character changes. But in this movie, the infection also has a personality. And that dynamic's really, really good. So the Venom character arc starts at this point. And Venom is an asshole in this movie. He says to Tom Hardy, he basically has a plan to eat loads of brains and kill people. And I think he wants his fellow aliens in space to find out the location of Earth so they can feast and destroy the Earth. And he says to Tom Hardy, you have to go along with this. If you go along with it, I might not kill you. Bear in mind, the symbiotes need a human host to survive. Otherwise, they can't. So Venom is an asshole. In the comics, I didn't read a lot of the comics. I'm a kind of person who just looks at the pictures. I'm not so interested in the comic book storylines, just a little bit. I found them a little bit boring, or just the way it's worded is so tongue-in-cheek and silly. It never really got me interested. I just like the aesthetic. I like the style. But I always imagined Venom as an asshole. Certainly when Venom first pitched up in the comics, that's all he was. He was just an evil, nasty, monster bad guy. And later on, I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, it was much later that they developed Venom into this anti-hero known as the Lethal Protector. This movie, of course, not having Spider-Man in it, they want to make Venom into a protagonist, so they're going to actually develop Venom into that side of the comics storylines where he was actually kind of a good guy, an anti-hero. And so this part of the movie sets that up. So they start off with Venom as an asshole, and then Tom Hardy, like Venom, has to find some kind of resolution after a conflict. And so you've got these two storylines going on that are quite separate. It's an alien who wants to eat everyone on Earth, and a guy who just wants to get his girlfriend back. But they're running so close together. You couldn't have a closer parallel to these two stories. In other films, they'll be further apart because the two characters are not always holding hands. But these guys are literally joined together. So I just thought that part of the script or storyline, screenplay, whatever you want to call it, was done really, really well. There was some intelligence there. So I can't understand how they could get that part so right and make that part look so effortless, but make such a stupid, kind of shitty story. It really is a discredit to the film, the storyline. And I can't understand it in light of the fact that the whole Venom part of it was so well done. It's a real missed opportunity. I mean, the movie could have been fucking awesome if it weren't for that. So then this symbiote that's been roaming the Earth for 6 months unaccounted for, killing loads of people, everyone's just ignored it, has found its way all the way to the bad guy, and it's ended up infecting this little girl. So the little girl could go through security, but how a 4 or 5 year old girl could waltz into a heavily guarded evil mega corporation and get through all the security doors and past the security guards, I have no fucking idea. So that was kind of just stuck in there. So she finds the bad guy, and I don't know how, I can't understand, number one, how she knew where he was, and secondly, why she chose him to infect. Yes, he's responsible for finding the aliens, but how the fuck did the alien even know that? And why does she need to go to him? It turns out later in the story that aliens want to go back into space with the rocket and bring all the aliens back. But how they would fucking get there and then bring them back, I don't even know. The story doesn't make any sense. Can someone explain this to me? But how does the alien even know this guy? Well, the alien was on the rocket, so it knows it's a rocket, but maybe the alien's really intelligent. It's not just a blob. And when it was on the rocket, it realized if it could take the rocket back to space, it could bring its friends back. But the rocket was destroyed, so yeah, it has to find the owner to build another rocket. But how does it know that he even has a rocket? It's just not really explained. Anyways, the alien infects the main guy, and then he becomes a Venom as well. And that means this little girl's dead, basically. So the little girl's dead, but it doesn't show that. And this guy's a much more powerful Venom. He's known as Riot. Riot was in the comics. It was in this special series where there were loads of symbiotes. It's a bigger, dirtier version of Venom. So at this time, Tom Hardy is learning to control Venom. And the girl who told him the info, it has already been killed by the bad guy. So Tom Hardy has to go into the office of his boss, his ex-company, his newspaper boss, because when he got infected with Venom, he took pictures and evidence of what the bad guy was doing. And this doesn't make any fucking sense. His boss is stereotypically located. His office is stereotypically located very high up this dramatic looking skyscraper. So instead of just emailing the guy the photos, for some reason he decides to go all the way up the skyscraper into the guy's office and leave the phone on the desk. Why would you do that? And he writes a note which is very kind of cryptic. He doesn't actually say, look on the phone, the shit's in here. It's cryptic. I guess he doesn't want someone else to find out. So instead of just emailing the photos to the guy and saying this is evidence, he decides to break into a heavily fortified building, which is not heavily fortified enough to stop a little girl. But when he turns up, suddenly it's like World War III. He decides to break into that building and scale it on the outside of the building in order to deliver his phone containing the evidence. Why does he do that? And even if his boss found the phone, is he really going to look through his pictures? Probably he will in the end, but it doesn't make any sense. So he turns out and he tries to go through the entranceway. And he's denied at the entrance by his friends, and this is quite an interesting struggle between Tom Hardy and the symbiote, because the symbiote wants to destroy this guy who's guarding the building. However, Tom Hardy knows the guy, so he's conflicted. Tom Hardy does remain somewhat in control of what's going on, so he has to fight with himself or fight with Venom to not kill this guy who he knows. Freaks out the security guard. And this is a very cool display of Venom's power. This makes people who relate to the Venom character, who want to be like Venom, a bit of an anti-hero, cream in their pants. So Venom didn't know that Tom Hardy wanted to even get into the office. So Venom says, "Why didn't you say so?" And then he looks up and then he starts scaling the building with that ferocious speed that I mentioned earlier, which is really awesome to see. It's just like the real Venom, even though, as I said, the actual physical look of Venom doesn't please me. The way it moves is just a thing of beauty, black beauty. So that was really cool. And then there's a fight scene, and that fight scene is vintage Venom. That's how Venom should have always been portrayed. That looks fucking awesome. Around the same time as this, or just before actually, the boyfriend of Tom Hardy's, Venom's, Eddie Brock's ex-girlfriend has tried to help him out because he's a doctor. I already mentioned that. He actually comes to Tom Hardy's aid and tries to analyze him and work out what's going on with the symbiote. This doesn't make sense either. Why the fuck is this guy helping Tom Hardy? Imagine this, right? You start going out with some bird or girls out there. Imagine you go out with some guy and their ex suddenly turns up and is acting really, really weird, and he's smelling of shit and he's all crazy and aggressive and stuff. Would you help that person? Would you take him into your medical practice privately and bring him back into your life when he's clearly trying to get back together with her, just from a sense of morals? So I thought, wow, this guy's of a great moral standing. That made, in the beginning, I thought, this reminds me of those relationships I've had where you try to be friends with a girl and it just didn't work out. But you probably should, because why should you be horrible to someone when you break up? Of course, there's a lot of baggage, but really, you want to be happy. You don't want to see them miserable if you love them. You just want to be friends, or just want to try to make it work without having to shut someone out of your life and having some kind of thing in the shadows. I thought maybe this is a testament to all the people who try to fix or remedy that classic romantic problem. So this doctor, okay, so he accepts his girlfriend will probably end up friends with the ex, so he's going to help him, and he just wants to do something good. But then throughout the movie, he's basically getting back together with her. So this guy's like cucking himself. This is quite in line with a lot of left-wing ideology I've seen these days. There was even an article on CNN saying becoming a cuck is a good thing. Being a cuck is basically allowing your girlfriend to be fucked by other guys. And it's basically a way of thinking that is accepted by weak men who are too afraid to stick up for themselves. So instead, they actually try to validate the behavior of other men trying to fuck their girlfriend, as opposed to having to stand up for themselves and for the girl and do what a man should do and protect her. So this guy just completely cucks himself, helps out this crazed, stinking, violent, lunatic ex-boyfriend, and then starts to lose his girlfriend to him. I don't understand that part of the story one bit. But yeah, so all this happens, this conflict happens in the building, and then what happens next? So the third act, some other shit happens, of course. I can't remember everything. Doing my best, but the third act, it all comes to a head. So Tom Hardy separates himself from Venom, which is quite interesting. I didn't think that was going to happen. And he finds out, this is probably the biggest plot hole in the movie. I could not understand this. It was so glaring. Even to me, it was glaring. So he separates himself from Venom, and then the doctor says, it's actually been killing you. It's been killing you the whole time. It's eating you away on the inside. So the symbiote apparently lied to Eddie Brock, Tom Hardy, and it appeared to be enhancing his powers. But actually, while it was doing that, it was killing him. So Tom Hardy, when the symbiote was extracted and was inside his ex-girlfriend's boyfriend's doctor's lab, seemingly contained in there, Tom Hardy gave the symbiote the finger, basically said, flipped it off, said, fuck you, you've been killing me, you liar. But the symbiote does say, they're lying, the doctor's lying, I wasn't hurting you. But why would the doctor be lying? So basically the symbiote was killing Tom Hardy. The Doctor has no reason to lie unless it's some plot twist, and there was no plot twist there. So it's been killing him. And we'll get to this later in the movie, at the end of the movie, so this leaves a gaping plot hole. But moving forward through the story, the symbiote's been separated, so Tom Hardy fucks off to, I don't know what he's trying to do at this point, I can't even remember. And the symbiote starts to infect other things. I think it's trying to get back to Tom Hardy. So then Tom Hardy is on the way back to the lab, so he's obviously trying to resolve something there. And the symbiote catches up with him because the symbiote possesses his girlfriend, and then his girlfriend kisses Eddie Brock to transfer the symbiote back to him. This is another huge plot hole because the whole point of this, one of the main points of the story, is the symbiote can't bond with people because it ends up killing them. And everyone it bonds with dies up until this point in the movie. But now it bonds with his girlfriend, then leaves his girlfriend and goes to him, but his girlfriend doesn't die. What the fuck's going on there? So that means that she can also achieve symbiosis, which means she's also a valuable character, but for the bad guy would want to find her as well. But this is not explained. How come she doesn't die? Anyways, the symbiote goes back to him, and then there's a kind of awkward romantic moment because he's just been kissed by a monster, and she says, "Oh no, it wasn't me who kissed you, it was the symbiote's idea." So I saw some of this mentioned online that it was a gay kiss or something between the symbiote and Tom Hardy, or like Tom Hardy kissing himself, like the ultimate narcissistic Oedipal dream or something, nightmare, whatever you want to call it. That's not really explained, but anyways, so that happens, and then Tom Hardy has the symbiote back, and at this point he's going to save the world. So Riot, the evil symbiote, the really evil symbiote, is now going to launch this rocket with the bad guy together and go get all these aliens and bring them back to Earth. And at this point, something really interesting happens that I really liked for some reason, and I'm sure a lot of people would have hated this, but Venom has a change of heart. So this is where Venom starts to become a good guy, and there isn't really enough running time in the movie to flesh out this part of the story. But Venom doesn't want to bring his buddies back, his alien buddies back to Earth anymore and kill everyone. Venom decides he's had a change of heart and he quite likes it on Earth and he wants to stay there. And I thought, this is nice. I think Tom Hardy's performance and the performance of the Venom CGI as well has made us build up an affection for both of these characters. And so when the symbiote has a change of heart, it's kind of interesting. I don't think many people were expecting that. I thought Tom Hardy would have to persuade the symbiote to become good, but Tom Hardy doesn't really. The symbiote kind of has experienced the world and has come to his own conclusions. There's one point when they're on top of a building, the building I mentioned earlier, and the symbiote begrudgingly admits that Earth looks quite beautiful. So the symbiote actually says it wants to stay on Earth and starts to become a good guy. And I love the reason for this. I thought it was funny. The symbiote says, basically, on my planet, I'm kind of a loser. And so here I'm actually somebody. I can be something. So relatively, the symbiote is really powerful when on Earth, when surrounded by humans. And this rips off another movie. I can't remember what it was, but I saw it when it was young. Can someone let me know? What's that 80s movie where these kids build a spaceship? They go into space and they meet these aliens. And throughout the majority of the film, much like Venom, the main characters have a certain perception of the aliens, and so does the audience. But at the end, you find out that the aliens are just kids and they're just having a laugh and messing around. That's why they were so crazy and immature. And actually, there was a whole bunch of other aliens that were adults, and the kind of real aliens, basically. That's what happens in this movie. You think that Venom is some total fucking psycho badass, the symbiote. But actually, it's a bit of a pussy back on its homeland. So that was kind of a nice plot twist, I thought, borrowing from that film. Can you let me know in the comments, what is that film that it borrowed from? So Venom actually turns out to be a bit of a pussy. And the good part is, this is part of the moral of the movie, I believe, is that you can't do it alone. And we can complement each other in ways we couldn't see before giving people a chance. So the symbiote actually with Tom Hardy is fucking powerful because Tom Hardy is powerful. I guess Tom Hardy has a strong spirit. He was never like a serious fighter in the beginning, although he was kind of quite cocksure. But the fact that Venom is elevated, enhanced to something way more than what it would be on its own planet or with another host, goes to show you that we need to work with people to complement each other. My weak points should be filled by someone else's strong points, and vice versa. And that is quite a good thing in general. You know, give people a chance. You might actually get something from it, and they might get something from it too. So I really like that part of the story. It wasn't explained, it wasn't fleshed out, but I didn't think it needed to be. And so that means I really wanted Venom to win, because it turns out this guy had been faking being tough the whole time. And we've all done that, haven't we? We've all met our match at some point in our life. Someone who intimidates us, someone who scares us. And we felt powerless, and we felt like we wanted to do something about it. And how can we overcome this? And Venom represents, I think, that part of us. And this movie gives us hope that if we work with other people, we give people a chance, then together we might be able to combat the ghosts and evils and demons, personal demons in our lives. So then at the end is the battle between Riot and Venom. Also, why are they called Riot and Venom? If they're from some alien planet where they look like amorphous goo, how do they have such American sounding vocabulary for names? I don't understand this. It is just a comic book. And so they have a fight. The fight is good. Again, more of the Venom that I like to see. And of course, Venom saves the day. The rocket ship blows up, and Tom Hardy falls into the sea. Venom seemingly perishes. And I just want to say, before I forget, right at the end of the movie, Stan Lee's in it, and he had actually died before I saw this movie, so that was quite an emotional part. But anyways, so that happens, saves the day, and then the next scene, pretty much, I think, is Tom Hardy with his girl sitting on a step, and they kind of become friends again, and there's some romantic thing there. He's like, "Did you really kiss me?" And she's like, "Oh, no, blah, blah, blah." So they're kind of getting back together, leaving that open for the next movie. None of this makes sense. Tom Hardy has roamed around the city, biting people's heads off, killing people, exposed himself as an alien. There's no reaction to the fact a fucking alien has been rampaging across the earth, killing people. None of this, no one's been taken into account for any of this shit. Tom Hardy's been beating the shit out of people, doing all kinds of crazy shit, and the city goes on as usual. So it seems like there is no police force in this version of the Marvel Universe. And so, yeah, the Doctor has cucked himself. The Doctor's not even in it at this point. And Tom Hardy's chatting up his bird. She obviously fancies him again. There's various scenes that prove that. So, yeah, that is the end of the movie. But it turns out Tom Hardy still is infected with Venom. And this makes no fucking sense at all, because it turns out Venom was killing him. So why the fuck would he want to be back with Venom? I guess you could argue he didn't want to be back. It infected him, and so it's poisoned his mind. But the way it's portrayed is not like that. It's kind of like they're in control. They want to be together. So Venom is actually killing this guy now. So he's killing himself to be with Venom. That makes no sense. How could you forget something like that and leave it in the film? All you'd have to do was edit that small scene out where it said, "Oh, it's killing you." You don't have to say that. You can say, "Oh man, you've been on a rampage. You nearly died. Look at you. You're a wreck. You can't go on like this." That's enough justification not to be bonded with the symbiote. But they should have edited that out. It shows you that this film was a bit of a mess, a little bit cobbled together to leave things like that out. I don't understand it. So that made no fucking sense at all. He gets his job back. So that's the resolution. He gets his job back. And he's back in his girlfriend's life. He'll probably complete that in the sequel. And, you know, like any good story arc, the character needs to have grown or have some kind of heightened perspective. And that is, he's now, well, there isn't much. He hasn't really learned much at all, because the reason he gets into all this trouble is because he goes into his girlfriend's computer. So he basically spies on his girlfriend and he steals some data. So in the end, you would think that if this movie has a proper story arc, and don't tell me the story arcs continue into the next movie. Each movie has to have a story arc, okay? If this movie has a proper story arc, then at the end, when Venom is still with him, he'll tell his girlfriend, "Look, I can't keep a secret from you. I'm still bonded with the symbiote." And then we see the character growth and development. But he doesn't do that at all. So he hasn't learned anything. This is like film writing 101, and I can't understand this part of the movie. Although we want to see them bonded together because we have an affection for the symbiote and Tom Hardy. But still, it doesn't make sense. So the character arc is really, really flawed here. You know, Eddie Brock doesn't fear the symbiote anymore. He embraces it, and it embraces him. So, what's really the moral here, though, if it's killing him? It doesn't make sense. We shouldn't want to accept someone or something if it's killing us. That's not really a moral. So anyways, Eddie Brock has gone from being a reporter who'll break the rules unfairly to get a story to a man who will bite people's heads off for messing with him, as he does so right at the end. So the shop, which is a central part of the movie, a lot of things relevant to the plot go down in this shop, this general store. At the end, there's a burglar in there. And this is another chance to show a character arc. This time, Tom Hardy's not going to bite that guy's head off. He's actually, I think he's already just been in the process of explaining to Venom, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. Much like in Terminator 2, where John Connor says to the Terminator, you can't just kill random people. And then the Terminator does that, and we see the Terminator's character arc, and we like the Terminator, we like the story. This is film writing 101, seriously, the basic character arc, first, second, and third act. Third act having the resolution. But in this film, he tries to explain to Venom, you can't kill people, only really, really bad people. The guy tries to rob the shop. He doesn't like rape or murder anybody, but still bad. What I'm saying is he hasn't done something that deserves to have his head bitten off. And Venom has become this weird vigilante. So Tom Hardy and Venom are like, fuck it, and they just kill the guy. So I don't understand this at all. A reporter who breaks the rules unfairly now breaks the rules even more unfairly at the end of the movie. And the movie was portrayed as it was PG-13, so it's not exactly a family movie, but it's presenting itself as a movie with a protagonist who's a bit of an anti-hero with some kind of morals and stuff. He cares about his girlfriend, he cares about people, and so does Venom. So why the fuck does he bite the head off a robber at the end of the movie? It doesn't make any sense at all. I just can't see the character progression. It would make sense if he didn't bite the robber, so that was really weird. So Eddie Brock is essentially the same guy at the end of the movie, just with less sickness. As I said, he lies about Venom to his girlfriend, showing he hasn't learned anything, even after losing his girlfriend. Even being at the point where he can get her back, he's still lying. He's still doing the same things that lost him his girlfriend, the things that got him into this mess in the first place. And I think one of the major problems with the character arc is that Eddie Brock wasn't really weak in the first place. He was a ballsy reporter, and now he's just more ballsy. So, yeah, he did take shit from his neighbor, but he didn't come across as a total pussy. And so this was pretty much the only change in the movie. He's now a bit more confrontational, and he always was. So the character arc's kind of messed up, and that's pretty much it for my review of Venom. My final summary is that Tom Hardy's performance and the actual animation and portrayal, the realization of the Venom character, the way it moves and its personality was a massive triumph. That was fucking good. I love that part of the movie. I'm the most cynical person ever. If you watch my other movies, movie reviews and trailer reactions, I hate nearly everything. We are in a Hollywood world with high stakes and very few financial risks, and it's the same shit over and over again. And I hate most shit coming out of Hollywood more than the average person. And I will speak my mind even when it hurts my views. I know when everyone loves a movie and it has loads of fanboys, but I'm an individual. I'm not a follower. I don't live in an echo chamber. I speak my mind, and I will say if I think something is shit. And for me to kind of say that this saved the film is really genuine, and I think it's really to this movie's credit how good the Tom Hardy performance is and how good the realization of Venom was. Everything around it, the story was just awful, but it was worth it just because of what I've said, the good points of the movie. And so it is a missed opportunity. This could have been a real dark classic if they would have made it a little bit darker, just taken inspiration from Christopher Nolan, made it a little bit, it is already quite dark, but just the day-to-day scenes, the day-to-day portrayals of life should just look real, should look like Gotham, where things look like a real city, and then you throw in the fantastical elements, and then you have this really nice mix of reality and fantasy. The day-to-day things going on in this movie were just very jokey and light-hearted, and I think it should have been a bit more dark day-to-day, and it just needed a slightly more adult story. The Christopher Nolan Batmans were the same rating, PG-13, and they were a little more adult. I think that would have made it maybe even into a classic. But as it is, I came out feeling satisfied with the character portrayal, because the portrayal of Venom in Sammy Raimi's Spider-Man just didn't look right, and it didn't move right. So yeah, what do I give the movie out of 10? It's such a hard movie to rate, but just overall, I'd give it a 7. I'd give it a 7 just for Tom Hardy's performance and the portrayal of Venom. So there's a post-credit scene. I stayed for one. I don't know if there's two, but I wanted to get out there to get the last train. It was a late showing. And there's a post-credit scene with Woody Harrelson as Carnage. Oh my God, he looks like Carnage. He acts like Carnage. Woody Harrelson, I really like him as an actor. I cannot wait for the next one. We're going to get Carnage finally. That's going to look awesome. And it's played by Woody Harrelson. I don't know how they made him look so young, because he's 58 or something. But that really hyped me for the next film as a comic books fan. And I can't wait to see Carnage. I just hope that they just get a better story for the next one. Don't make it that ramshackle. They really, really have to work hard on the script this time. They've got to get some more people in and really make that match the performance of Tom Hardy. Then we could get something quite awesome. But the thing is, this movie's been very successful, so they're probably not going to change the formula too much, although they've obviously seen the reviews, so they must be aware of it. So here's hoping we're going to get a even better Venom movie next time. So I hope you enjoyed my review of Venom. Make sure you like and subscribe the video like everyone tells you to do, because it helps, and you'll get more reviews from me. So next up, you probably get a Bohemian Rhapsody review. I saw that as well with my girlfriend before Venom. So stay tuned for that. And also make sure you listen to my music up there, because I'm a music producer and that's my dream. That's really what I'm trying to do. Check it out, see what you think. Cheers, people. See you on the next one.